as an opportunity for any group of teammates when a senior executive is present to spend some time talking with them, asking questions, giving feedback. And so there was a group of facility administrators that was talking with Kent and wanted to, wanted additional not only personal and professional development opportunities, but also talking about values and values creation and being a values-driven organization, the opportunity to really spend 2 days talking about values and how each individual teammate can be and is a contributor to that. And so really the idea was born from the folks that are running our dialysis centers. We started out very small. We had a pilot of 40 teammates. Now we're doing academies of 450. So very humble, small beginnings, 40 teammates. They were small, intimate settings at first, and then we grew and were able to keep the spirit of the academy alive, doing even larger and larger programs. And so truly, Academy was the very first educational offering. It was the foundational program and remains the foundational program for the organization. And Joe, you were actually here when the first Academy came to be, so did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would add is we had this big annual meeting, and there was so much energy, and people were so, they were inspired and motivated and went back with their, they were re-energized. And they said, how do I bring this back to my center? I don't know how to do that. And so it was just like, whoa, maybe we should have something centralized. And I think the learning we took away from having it being centralized was people then could understand, what is DaVita, what is our culture, why are we so intentional, what does the Three Musketeers mean? And they could hear it in a consistent manner and in consistent language and then network with their peers of being able to say, how do you weave this notion of a village and make it feel small? And part of that is you have to know somebody from another dialysis unit. You can't just play in the same pool and swim with the same people all the time and have diverse ways of thinking. And so I think we now kind of consider it like our onboarding. Like, okay, so you now have a job at DaVita, but what does it really mean? And how do you fit into the culture? And what does the culture mean? And why are we so intentional about it? And what are we asking of you, right, to be a part of building this village together? We all have a part in it, and we don't wait and see. And so I think it's kind of our way of just saying welcome, and let's give you some tools to survive in this culture, and we want you to be a leader in this culture. So I think that's all I'd add.
So one question that I have is, and I'm not sure if there is a document that that shows this, or if you can talk through the actual goals that you have for your academies. Like what are the things that you want participants to walk away knowing and feeling when they participate in the academy?
Yeah, I think we have 4 main goals, and we lay them out within the first 10 or 15 minutes of the program. The first, as Joe was just saying, is truly an introduction to the village, the concept, and our culture. So understanding that it is very intentional, and understanding that you have a choice to be a part of that culture. That's the first, I think, main component, is this idea of an introduction to the village and the culture, understanding why we do the things that we do. And secondly is to understand, as Joe also said, your role in it. And so there's an idea, too, now of how do I fit in? Because now, as a teammate at DaVita, I am part of the DaVita story. I am DaVita. And so how do I fit into that culture? And also, we want teammates to make personal meaning and personal connection to the cultural aspects as well as the core values. Third is the desire to give what I say some basic tools for your toolbox. And so they are really truly more personal than professional type tools. We don't talk a lot about business at the Academy purposely because we believe that if we have healthy, happy citizens of a village, that carries into work. And so we focus on things like conflict management, communications, what do you believe in terms of a personal credo. And so they are personal development kinds of concepts. And then last, our fourth purpose or goal of the Academy is what we call the one thing. So we want teammates walking away doing just one thing differently. Doesn't have to be about work. Whatever the one thing is that they can commit to, stick to, create a habit from that would make them a happier, healthier, more effective human being. That's what we ask them to commit to doing. And that's a very personal, deeply personal process that teammates go through in the Academy to develop that one thing.
Great. So, Amy, you look like you want to jump in and ask a question.
Oh, no, I was just thinking about how in participating, I was very appreciative, Joe, of you inviting us out to participate in the last Academy, because I really think that we could read the information on paper, and I don't think we would have received like the spirit. Like the two things that really struck me were like one being like the what and how. That it wasn't just about the content, like how everything was done, like the everything speaks. Even in how Academy was constructed was saying a lot about the organization and contributed to the experience. And the second thing that I found like really impressive and impactful was even down to the sessions, like the personalization from senior leaders was also a key component of, I think, what was investing people, right? They could have done each of those same sessions, but without the personal framing and the storytelling and kind of the like revealing about themselves, I think it wouldn't have had the same impact. But the how of everything, both on the macro level and then at the session level, really was what I think contributed to people walking away finding meaning from this and being bought in. Like, and it was impressive. Like, people didn't know us, so sitting at meals and everything and hearing people's informal reactions, I think was an interesting and accurate data point that across the board, it was having the impact that you were setting out to. It wasn't like it was in words, but not in truth. Like, it really was, people were buzzing about, like, I think how they felt really good and appreciative and how happy they were all at AF-DaVita. And that was really inspirational to see. And it made me think about how if we try to turnkey this, we have to be thinking of, like, what and how. And if we only focus on the what, we're kind of missing the mark. So I'm really interested to kind of further figuring out, like, how do we do the how well, and at the macro level of, like, you know, of having everything speak, but then also at the more micro level, like session by session, how do we get the how right to ensure the impact translates?
Yep. So I know that in our agenda it says that we wanted to talk about how the Academy would fit with Endeavor's current priorities, but I actually think we need to take one step back and just have Anna tell us what the actual goals for Endeavor are this year and what the priorities are, if those are two different things for you guys. So Anna, could you just inform the group of what the goals are and what the priorities are for Endeavor, and then you could just transition right into how you think the Academy might fit in. If you need some think time on that second question, just let me know.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to just talk about our goals in context of character and parent engagement. Does that make sense? Or do you want me to talk about?
No, that's
sense.
Yeah,
I don't need to dig into reading instruction, but I do think that's really
okay. Okay, great.
Of, like, where the intersection is.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think Tom came back from, I guess I think, heard or met with, I don't know, he came back super inspired by meeting Ken, and has really, like, the big goal this year was that we were going to be a values-first team. So it's like we went through this whole process of choosing what our core values were going to be. I mean, like, really intense process, hours and hours of professional development time spent on, like, learning about the core values and then just debating, like, what are we going to narrow it down to? And so we've narrowed it down to, like, our core values, and we figured out, like, when selecting, that they would be the core values that not only drove our staff team, but our kids as well. Because the whole idea is, like, I don't know if this comes from DaVita or not, but Tom came back with, like, the idea of the sugar and the story of Gandhi, and, you know, Gandhi brings, or the mom brings the little boy to Gandhi and says, you know, my son has been having a stomachache, can you help him, can you help him? And Gandhi says, you know, I'm sorry, can you bring him back in 3 weeks? There's not anything I can do for him right now. And then mom brings him back in 3 weeks, and then he says, like, you need to stop eating sugar. And the mom goes, why didn't you tell us that 3 weeks ago? And Gandhi says, well, because 3 weeks ago I hadn't stopped eating sugar. So this whole idea of, like, we must live and breathe our core values, and whatever we're going to teach kids in terms of character, we have to do ourselves. So, like, I mean, one of our core values is gratitude. So, I mean, we have journals this year, and in PD, a lot of times we'll go to our journals and we'll write in our journals. Tom, with the leadership team, I mean, I do my gratitude journal every night. Like, I write the 3 things I'm grateful for, which came out of this values-first work, and has honestly, like, changed parts of, I mean, it's like, it's made me a happier person. So I think we've just seen the power already of, like, not creating this false dynamic, too, of, like, work-life balance, and kind of trying to get rid of that phrase, and realizing, like, the ways that we're so enriched through our work and the ways that we grow personally through our work. And it's about work-life boundaries, and you do need boundaries, but we don't have to make the false choice of, like, we go to work and then we go home and we get to do all the things that nourish our lives. That work is a part of everything that nourishes our lives. So I think that's, like, how the core values work has played out for us this year. In terms of our character with kids, I think.
Anna?
Yeah.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
were those democratically voted on by a majority of people, or was it a small group that chose those values?
No, it was the whole staff.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, it was the whole staff that was here with us last year. So
okay.
We do have some new folks that weren't a part of the decision making, but it was collective based on the whole staff. Yeah.
Nice.
So, I mean, we've basically formed our character units for kids off of our core values. We've been experimenting with, like, a leadership circle where it's all, each grade comes together. But we've been trying to give kids, like, real at-bats with the character. So, like, there was a gratitude exercise where, I think this is probably the most powerful one this year, but the kids had to write a gratitude letter, and then they had to call in front of, like, a small group of their peers, and they had to call the person they wrote the letter to and read the letter out loud to the person. And, I mean, you had our toughest 6th grade boys just in tears on the phone with grandma or whoever they were calling to read their gratitude letters. I mean, half the 7th grade, I feel like, was just literally, like, crying because it was such a powerful experience for them. So I think, like, we figured it out in little pieces how to make the character values feel powerful for our kids, but that's still a real struggle. And then from a parent end, I think we've really done very little to invest our parents in. I mean, I think if you even said to our parents, like, what are the core values, if their kid goes home and talks about growth mindset or gratitude, then they might know through that. But otherwise, I think that that's been a weaker component for us in terms of getting our parents on board. So I think that's what I mean, we're really excited on a basic core level of just like relationship building with our parents, I think. Yeah, is there anything else you want, or should I begin to talk about how I think, or what we're hoping to get out of the Academy?
I do want to pause here and just ask folks if they have any questions for Anna on anything that she shared so far.
Anna, I was wondering if you could just list off what the values were for the school that you all selected. I've gotten two of them in terms of gratitude and growth mindset.
Yep. So it's gratitude, growth mindset, teamwork. It's growth mindset / optimism, teamwork, integrity, no, I'm just trying to remember the ones. And grit.
And grit?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I like that one. That's a good one.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, so Anna, why don't you go ahead and let us know what you think you guys could get out of the Academy experience. One thing that I will mention is that while you were talking about the goals and the priorities, what really resonated with me is how much it mirrored what I heard happen at DaVita as far as like coming up with the core values together, it being a democratic process, and even the use of the story of Gandhi and the sugar, because there are a lot of stories that are told at DaVita as well to really anchor the point that's being made. So those are just some of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking. But if you could just tell us, based on what you heard from Sally and Joe and what your priorities are, where you think the connections might be.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I first have to just correct the core values. I think that this is why we chose too many. It's love of learning, I left off the list, and open-minded critical thinking, I left off the list.
Cool, thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, I think like this is where, like as a school team, I feel like we have some of the foundation of like potentially, you know, what's done in like academy, the first academy people go to, but I think we're ready to like really see the core values work go to the next level and infuse it in our partnership with parents, and that like thinking about that is really exciting for us. Especially, I mean, at the end of the day, like we are teachers and educators, and we're not parents. And you know, we need to make sure that our parents want to foster the same values in their children that we do, and it needs to come from, I mean, it needs to come from parents and families if we're going to see the character value work take off, I think. And so that's a really exciting thing to think about, is just investing parents in that and just hearing from parents kind of how they align to our core values, or if they, I mean, you know, potentially we change some of the core values based on conversations that we would have at the academy meeting. I think like that's we're flexible about that. I think we'd be really excited to do some race work. I mean, for context, like our staff is probably 70% white. Our parents are 95% African American and Caribbean, and I think that we would be super excited to continue, like, you know, we have race conversations as a staff, but to be able to do that with our parents would be a real opportunity for us. Yeah. I think the idea is like if we can get this core, like it would be, from my understanding, there's like, we'd have about 50 parents, and just grow our support of parents who like really believe in not just our academic mission, but also like the character that we live and breathe that's so important to us as a staff team, and kind of figuring out how they can help and partner with us there to make the character work more powerful.
Mm-hmm. Are there any reactions to how we might have the academy work with Endeavor.
So one quick logistical question. Is it the pilot is with Endeavor and another middle school or just Endeavor?
Right now we're thinking of there are 3 schools that we have in mind, but their academies would be separate. So we're thinking of Endeavor, East New York Middle, and Crown Heights Middle, but they would be 3 separate academies.
Okay.
And roughly, Gersh, we'd be thinking about Endeavor first as like the first pilot late spring, and then Crown Heights in like July, right, from what I understood, and East New York potentially August or something?
I think actually East New York would have been between Endeavor and Crown Heights, but I haven't heard back from Fatima yet if that was going to work. So
okay,
potentially
so we're targeting Endeavor for the first, so like the pilot within, and then to experiment with like how do we adapt to the other 2 schools soon after.
Yep. It would be Endeavor.
So my first reaction, I think it's really aligned with, the academy does infuse the values, and what does it mean to live the values, and what does that look like, what does that feel like, and open it up for dialogue. One of the premises in our design is like we don't force anything. We openly have conversations and share, but then it's a personal choice that people like, oh yeah, I fit, or that makes sense to me, or some of our teammates say, you people are just absolutely crazy, and I'm like leaving this organization. So it's all about personal choice and just opening it up and exposing people to like new ideas and new thinking, right? And then kind of calling the question of are you willing to help us create something really cool? But never a force and never a mandate. Even participation is voluntary. We do not mandate anybody go to the academy. They volunteer to go. And so it isn't like, oh my God, my boss said I have to come here to this academy, and so I'm here, and I don't want to be. We say you don't have to be, and we send them home. We want people who want to be there, so it is all voluntary. And so if you think that you have however many parents, and it's voluntary for them to come, or the teachers, it's voluntary for them to come, and you keep that premise, you're not going to get 100%, And so how do you replicate this, right? And then how do you replicate it with new people going on? I think the one thing that's just sitting with me is it's one thing to do the academy, right? Ours is an ongoing program, and I'm wondering, are you going to do this like just as a one-time deal? Because then I don't know that it's the academy format, right? So, we can help you with the how and the look and the feel and the energy of it, but I don't know that it's necessarily the academy per se, if it's like a one-time deal that you're going to do as a ad hoc day and a half.
Yeah, I think the goal is that it's not that, like from an effort versus impact, I think we're like, that pulling off the academy is going to be a lot of work for us, and so we wouldn't want to see it as a one-time thing. We'd want, I think I'm unclear exactly what it looks like after, but for sure we're not thinking of it as a one-time thing.
Okay, okay.
In terms of the opt-in, Tom and I have talked, and we would make it opt-in for staff,
cool.
And we would make it opt-in for parents as well. I think the thing that gets trickier here is like, which parents do we take potentially if there's more than 50 parents that want to come, and like, do we take our really supportive parents, or do we take? We don't necessarily want our parents that are really disinvested and be like sitting, the dynamic of like our teachers. I don't know. So I think like there's more there's more thinking that we need to do in terms of kind of which parents we bring that want to come, but we do want to make it optional.
Yeah, cool. And then you want to obviously your pilot, you do need some skeptics, because you want to be able to hear the skeptics, because that's how we learn and grow as well, right? And embrace, because you're going to have some skeptics around this. My curiosity and wondering is, for your pilot, have you considered doing your pilot just internally first to see how it lands with your staff before you take the risk of saying, oh, it tanked, and now the community knows that it tanked? I mean, that's a huge that seems like a bigger risk to me. And so I'm just curious as why you're taking it externally when you haven't even done it internally first.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of doing it, I guess, what do you mean?
Conducting the academy and seeing how it lands with people and seeing if it's the right content and seeing if you're getting the results that you want and people are feeling good and kind of empowered and, you know, have their gas tanks filled. You know, kind of do a test run internally to learn before you start expanding it. So like at DaVita, when we first did it, we did it with a small group of people to say, let's do a test run first before we expanded it. So I'm just wondering if you would, if it's going to be an ongoing thing, and you started with some of the teachers first, janitors and cooks, I'm assuming it's everybody in the school, but if you started with that small group first to see what did you learn, what's the feedback you're getting, what do you have to change, what do you have to tweak, how does the conversation change, and give your presenters time to kind of say, I get my story and it did land, or, whoa, we had the way wrong person up there talking about that topic. There's just a lot of learning in a first pilot, and so I'm just curious as to why you'd bring parents in. And I'm not saying you can't, it's just a risk.
I have a thought about that, Joe, because I've thought about that too, just the potential risk of it tanking in front of families and it essentially having the opposite effect that we would have wanted.
Right.
And so my thought about that, even as you said it this second time, is what if we did have a small group of families there, and they are the more invested families, so that even if it tanks, so to speak, we've done it with a group that's a little bit more forgiving and have partnered with us in the past and would be willing to give us the feedback that we need to make it better. Because my only concern about doing it for staff and not including families even in that test run is that we do the test run for staff and it lands well, but then there are things that don't translate to families. So I wonder if we should bring in maybe a small group of really invested families who would be willing to share, thought partner with us on how to make it better, so that when we bring it to a larger group, we know that the sampling that we started with was representative of the larger group that we're bringing it to. What do folks think about that?
Yeah, that one lands better with me.
I think if we had done none of the values work and none of the, I mean, we haven't done an academy per se, but I do feel like we've had a lot of kind of sessions and discussion and values work that staff are extremely, extremely bought into.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you kind of do some hand picking for your first pilot run, and then get feedback. What worked? What didn't? What do we have to change? I mean, our academy, we still are constantly changing. We get feedback, we listen to it, and we tweak it constantly. So.
Amy,
did you have something I just wanted to name? Sorry, can I jump in for 1 second? Is just the nature of our school population. Every year our schools are all our schools are most of our schools are 4 grades, right? 5 through 8, 9 through 12. And I think because of that, 25% of our population is new each year for scholars and families, right? So we might have stable staff populations, but it's hard for me to imagine this not repeating, even just based on how we invest in new families that are with us and new scholars and new staff. I can imagine this program being potentially we broaden the scope that we're impacting throughout the year and have multiple academies even during the year. But at the bare minimum, on an annual basis, we have at least 25% of our community is new each year.
Cool. Yeah. And then just a food for thought before I lose my my idea is, you don't have to call it an academy. right?
Yeah.
So you can get creative on whatever you want to name it. Like for Denver Public Schools, they call it creating connections.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yep.
I've been playing around with titles. I shared this with Sally, and I've put on some documents the Team and Family Summit. I'm not even sure what the reaction is for that, but Amy and Anna, maybe we can throw around some titles that we think would work well for us. We may not want to use Academy for whatever reason, or maybe we decide that that's the right language that we want to use, but definitely something that we should think about as we're thinking about how this might land with our participants.
Yeah,
Yep.
Cool, good.
Okay, so we are actually right at time for this section. There are still two things that we wanted to talk about. So Amy, did you want us to just go right into the vision for like what we had created as the vision for this, or did you want me to spend just maybe 2 minutes on the family engagement work?
Maybe if you can give a context of family engagement, and then we can share with the group like our initial draft thinking with Yumi and Daisha on some of the vision. But clearly, Anna, we would customize this and refine thinking. It would be largely school driven. But Gersh and I were just trying to process after we participated in Academy, like what do we have? Like what are some initial thoughts about like goals and everything? But I think that's even shifted after the call so far today, hearing Joe and Sally talk about desired impact. I think we missed a few key aspects. But maybe you can give it larger family work first, and then we can come back to that. And if we could pull up the draft document, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
And Gershman, I did send you the DPS, their version and kind of their outline of like how they were thinking about their creating connections. So take a look at that.
Yep, absolutely. So just to give everyone a bit of context around our family engagement work network-wide, I think for the most part, our work on family engagement, I'm sorry, let me just say, folks, you might want to mute yourselves because there's a little bit of feedback on the phone. So if you are on your computer, just go ahead and mute it because of the feedback. So in terms of our family engagement work network-wide, family engagement is something that has lived mostly at the school level, and each school has defined for themselves how they will be working with families and how they're defining engagement. And so we have found that families were having uneven experiences across all of our schools. And we've come to the realization that, we have this very inspiring mission that we talked about at the beginning of this call, and we essentially can't meet that mission if we are not engaging with families in ways that are authentic and genuine, and really leveraging them to be the academic and character skills coaches during out-of-school time. So the first thing is just we want to be able to meet our mission, and without parents as partners, we're not going to be able to do that. I think the second thing is that we know that out-of-school time is actually really critical for our scholars and for any student for that matter. And we need to be able to leverage that out-of-school time because the school day is just not enough time for us to not just get through the curriculum, but also to make sure that it's being reinforced in every aspect of our scholars' lives. And so how do we make sure that, A, we're building strong connections and relationships with families so that we're partnering with them throughout their 13-year journey with us before college and even after, during and after college. But then also, like, how do we ensure that families feel very much equipped to continue the learning at home? So I love the piece that Anna raised about there not being this balance. There's what you do at school and then there's what you do at home, but rather what you do at home is a continuation of school. So that is where our family engagement work was born out of. And so right now we're just trying to figure out, like, what are the key ways that we can leverage, family communication so that they're high quality, and how do we ensure that we are creating opportunities for family and staff to build really great relationships with each other. So that's going to look a number of different ways across our schools. So we see the AF-DaVita work as one opportunity for us to build really strong connections with families, even outside of just talking about the academic things that happen at school, but how do we really have families feel like they're part of a village and they are part of a culture, and that they fit in, and that there's something that they contribute to that world as well. So that's what I'll say on the family engagement work, and I'm happy to talk more about it later, but I'm a little bit conscious of time. So I'm going to pull up the strawman plan that we have. I don't think this is it. Here it is.
And maybe we can we'll reference like our initial thinking. I can share 3 things that I see as like potential changes, and then maybe we could go to the GPS documents and see what their version is, and then hear from Anna of like what things seem to resonate, and does anything like stick out from the group of like what we've discussed so far, so we can get some of that alignment now, right?
Yeah, and so what I would say is if you guys take a look at the calendar invite, there's a zip drive that has the document in it. The first 3 are the PowerPoint. It's the one that says AF Leadership Family Summit Strawman Plan. So if you pull that up, you'll be able to scroll through at your leisure. But for right now, why don't we focus our attention to, let's see, before the staff overview part, because I think everything above that is basically our challenge, our purpose, and our aim. So I just want to ground us in that work first. If we can get alignment there, then we can move to the logistics later on. So can we just take maybe 3 to 5 minutes on the phone so that people have a chance to review this? Do folks just need a few more minutes, or are we ready to dive in? Sounds like we need a few more minutes.
Do you want us looking beyond the objective?
Yeah, so you can stop at where it says staffing overview.
Okay.
Okay, I see folks leaning back, which tells me that you might be ready to start. Okay, so Amy, did you want to kick us off with, I'm sorry, before I get to Amy, Anna, did you want to kick us off with any reactions that you have? I know this is the first time you've probably seen this.
I really like it a lot. I think that the goals are exactly what we would want to work on. And I think there are things that we've worked really heavily on as a school staff. So I don't think it will feel super new to our teachers. I mean, we spend so much time talking about difficult conversations and communication and keeping the water clear. So I think that that's awesome.
Any spots where you want to maybe realign? Maybe there are places that are just not quite what you thought it would be, or maybe things you want to think about a little bit more?
Is that to
It
Anna?
still feels pretty like high level to me, so I don't know that from a high level I think that it's what we're thinking.
Okay.
I mean, I know that Tom and I were both excited to fit some of the race work in there. It's just like that feels more content oriented if that happens through struggling together to better understand conflict and how to address it, or learning to communicate. I mean, I'm not sure, you know?
Yep. Anyone else, same questions, just what are the initial reactions? I know the rest of us have seen this document. Anything that we think we need to readjust, just given Anna's comments about Endeavor specifically?
Can I jump in with some thoughts first?
Please do.
I think, when I look at this with fresh eyes, I feel like I feel good about our internal objectives on the far right-hand side of that chart. I actually think on the left side, the external are off. I liked the 4 that Sally and Joe spoke of earlier. I think that actually is a lot clearer. Like, I think we're right on number 3 as far as there are some skills we want people to build. But number 1, I actually think we want to cut. I don't think it's about like a vision of scholar success. I think that's going to get us down the path of like our work, our business work. It's going to be too technical in nature. And I think 2 starts to get a little bit too technical as well versus how the goal that was spoken of earlier when Sally was describing it, like how I fit in, like I am AF or I am AF Endeavor, like making personal meaning. I think we're losing that spirit of like the personal meaning of like the values and culture. So I think we need to recraft our public goal number 2 and then add in a 4th goal as the public objective around the one thing. I do think that's important of like there is something we're trying to anchor this as like making some aspect of like self-improvement and betterment, right? Of like either a choice of being how we're going to be happier. Like there is like something that's missing around like we believe in investing in people, and if we each are happier, healthy, whatever, more balanced, like more grounded individuals, more fulfilled individuals, we're going to contribute more to the community. I think we're missing that right now. So if we were to make those adjustments to public, then I think we'd also have to rewrite some of the paragraph above that, because I do think it starts to get too technical in nature of like the scholar success part, and we're missing some of the spirit of like investing in individuals so that we can create a healthier community.
So verbatim, Amy, I completely agree with you, so I won't say more about that, and I'll give Sally and Joe a chance to also weigh in.
You're muted.
Sally, you're muted.
Thank you. Forgot about that. I like a lot of the discussion that you're having. I do think that our objectives are a bit more broad in that we do leave a lot of space intentionally for personal meaning that can't be defined in this type of document. And so I like that. I like those thoughts. And 2, I think that as you have some pilots, you'll continue to tweak these as you learn and grow through the process of holding these types of events.
Yep. Joe?
Yeah, I thought, Amy, you nailed it, so there's nothing else for me to add. I think it's kind of right on point. If, Anna, you think it is as well, I think then we're on point with Amy's edit.
Mm-hmm. I'm just taking some notes here, folks. Don't mind me. Okay. Great. So let's move forward in the agenda. I think there is definitely one more thing that we want to talk about with this. Does it make sense for us to move on to the rest of the straw man, since we feel like there's like goal work that we need to readjust? I feel like that's going to inform the rest of the logistics that we talk about, so like content session, facilitators, and what have you. But happy to talk through it now if people feel like that's the right next step for us in this call.
Yeah, I think so. I think we could start talking about like session. You're imagining like session by session. Does that?
Yep. I think this is where the sessions start. Do we want to review the items above that session, so the day factor piece, the staffing overview, and what have you, or do we want to skip that?
Sorry, just one more thing that I'm not sure where it fits in, but I do feel like this idea of our shared core values has to come up somewhere if that's going to be the foundation. Kind of.
You said your school's core values, you said, Anna?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like as a teacher team, they're really strong, and we know them and we get them, and you know. But from our partnering with parents perspective, I think that needs to come in somewhere.
Yep. We agree. So, Amy, you want us to go session by session here?
I don't know. Is that we're trying to like get an initial take on like how much of this would match up, right? So like, should we? It seems like if we're going to get into then the content of sessions, and
yep.
We should probably first look at the what. Do we have the what right?
Yep. Okay. So the session content starts on where it says day 1. So why don't we do what we did before? Folks can take about 3 to 5 minutes to just read through what we would like to get done in terms of our sessions. And then we can circle back as a team to talk through some of this. Okay? So I'll get us back in about 5 minutes, so 10:41.
Garth, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So there's 2 questions in my mind as I'm reading this. I don't know if they're the right ones. I would love direction from Sally and Joe. Like, one, where do I see direct connections with the sessions and the Endeavor core values? Because obviously we want to see some type of link. And then 2, what space could we create for like if we believe like a prerequisite to relationship and community is like part of that is like an honest discussion about race. Like, where do we see the race topic to intersect? Is that, should I be thinking in terms of like both of those, like the core values? When you guys sit down to plan Academy, does every session connect to core values, and should we be thinking about that direct link at this stage?
Yeah, so in a lot of the sessions, well, really most of the sessions do tie back to a core value. So I think it's either core value based or it's personal development based.
Got it. Okay.
And
so got it.
And then one of the things that Denver Public School did is that they changed. They obviously did the story of Denver Public Schools, but they have a section on core values and shared core values where they have people going and doing deeper core value work specifically because they're brand new at it versus us who is so vetted. So I think we take that part from Denver Public Schools and plug that into yours. I think instead of getting into the nitty-gritty of here, you just kind of take a look at, do you have the right components? Are you starting out with understanding the parents' world and the teacher's world, understanding the student's world? Are you having a town hall? Kind of what are the components? And then it's simple to kind of say, how much time do you devote to what? And we can say what comes first, what comes second. When we think about design, we think about, you know, you start them out in their heads, you have to get them to their hearts, you have to have their hands included. And so when we're designing it, how do you make it all interactive? That's not a hard thing to do once we have the right components and the right categories that you want.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So I'll bring us back at 10:44. Okay, I'll bring the group back now. I can start with one reaction that I have on the document, and that was, of all the pieces that are already fleshed out here. Number one, I thought these were a little bit vague, and it's probably because we're still trying to figure this out, and so I know there'll be plenty of changes to these. But one thing that I thought was still really relevant was the strong preference to do a video on the parent, and Amy and I talked about this, parent and scholar experience when they walk into a school, and then share our expectations around service excellence, and then having a brainstorm around how do we create a warm and welcoming environment for everyone who walks into one of our schools. To me, I think of all the sessions written here, that is the one, in my opinion, that's the most spot on with something that, what we're trying to accomplish here, and doesn't really necessarily get into the business of things, but maybe speaks to more about how we are building connections with families and making sure that we understand their perspective. But for these other sessions, I think that there's some, significant work that we have to do to get it to a place where it's not just about the business, and that it's about personal growth for people that they're bringing into their professional space. Anybody else who wants to share a reaction?
Yeah. I mean, my thought is that, like, when, at least the way we've approached kind of building a team and doing values first is, like, from the 5 dysfunctions framework and really starting with the being vulnerable. And I think that that needs to happen first. And it feels like we jump into this 2-hour session about, like, the history of AF and priorities and our values and, I don't know, defining goals and all. I just think that there needs to be a lot more of just, like, being vulnerable with each other in the context of the core values potentially. Like, that's how we did it this year on day 1 of staff, where it was like, you needed to talk about a time in your life where you had to show grit. But I feel like a lot of the time where we're talking with parents and there's the communication is all still in the context of, like, parents and scholars would share their goals for scholars in small groups. It's like, I think we want to get out of this, like, you're the mother of blank child, and get to a place where it's like, no, I'm Anna, like, I'm not Miss Reeves, like, I'm a person, and you are, who you are as a person, and really have that be the foundation before we dive into anything having to do with, I don't know, school-based challenges or, parents' goals for their kids.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting on something. I think across the board, it seems like we have to look for all the ways. Like, we have to take the technicality out of some of this stuff, and, like, when I keep thinking back to, like, the DaVita Academy, intentionally, it seemed like Sally and Joe, like, I noticed no name tags had roles, right? Like, when everyone was participating, it was really a role-less experience where there was, like, an equal grounding of everyone building skill and, like, participating as people. And I feel like there are too many times in our agenda where we're either signaling or putting in content that's, like, technical and role specific, that's going to put up more boundaries that we're trying to break down, right? So that seemed to be, like, a theme. I think the other quick thoughts I had as far as content, like, I think there are a lot of opportunities to kind of trim the fat, as, like, I think we can cut from like, even down to, like, the announcements, like the update on school performance. Like, I'm not sure if that's, we should probably, like, we're missing the town hall, I think, or that's supposed to be part of that maybe. Did I miss that? But I think we have to look for, I think, how we can trim the fat and then put time back into, I think, some value explicit work, unless it's going to come out in, like, how I fit in, of, like, making those connections explicitly. I can't remember the content of that session. And then I think there's some content revamp that's needed as far as, like, the Mount Everest session. I think is, like, we want to root that in, like, the personal, like, skill development of, like, setting goals and breaking things down. And I think that seemed like we needed to kind of refocus that session a little bit. I wonder structurally if we could add in a column to be explicit of, like, what's the value link here, and or what's the personal skill that we are having people develop, or both. just so we can see that kind of teased out in our planning documents of what the kind of the why is behind that.
Yeah, to something I'd add to that is in our design we are intentional about weaving those two things together, and so it's not necessarily so much a let's talk about values here for this section of time, let's talk about this specific skill set for this set of time. We do want to and strive to meld those things together so that when we're talking about team, for example, obviously being a value, we're also then weaving in the culture piece of why we say one for all and all for one, where that came from, what that means to the organization, and then encourage folks to develop some personal meaning. So what they say that, what does that trigger for them? And so it is an intentionally woven together process, if that makes, or woven together in terms of content, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
That's helpful.
Extremely helpful. Alrighty, so I think this has been a really helpful process. You may have noticed that I started to take some next steps notes in our next steps tracker. That this section here needs to be revamped, and so Anna, we can connect later about when you might have time to review a new draft, and we can talk through whether or not that feels a lot better, and then we can talk with Tom about whether that information is a go-ahead for you guys. Make sense?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So, yep, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the other thing is, with the weather that was so bad, we couldn't get there face-to-face, but I think it really makes sense. Sally and I do need to get face-to-face. I think we sit side by side and say, okay, if this is the content, here's kind of what we do at our academy. Here's what the deck looks like. How does that fit into your story? What do we need to have to rewrite? But I think we really need devoted time to start fleshing out the PowerPoints, the messaging, the language, some of the symbols and traditions that you want to start carrying on. And I think the only way to do that is face-to-face. So would you all agree with that?
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And can I name first, maybe this is being captured, but there are a few symbolic outstanding questions that I just wanted to put on the table for us to come back to at some point. We've already named, what are we calling this, right?
Yep.
Similarly, I think, what's the AF Endeavor version of Crossing the Bridge? And 3, what's our version? I do think, it might be an opportunity to pause as a school community of, is there a value, or do we already have, or could we create some, the equivalent of the chance, the call and response? We have some aspects of that with scholars that we do, but I actually don't think we do that with adults. And that symbolically got woven in quite a bit through Academy. I think it actually, we already do some versions of that, but I think we might want to tease out, do we want to define any of that to weave in?
Yeah. So so there's those 3 questions, and then another question from earlier was about how do we replicate this across schools, knowing that 25 schools have 25 different values, and how do we make sure we replicate the how and the what, given those differences across schools?
I kind of think that we have to answer this with a uniquely Endeavor middle school lens first, and then after we go through the experience, kind of pull back and figure out now what it would take to do it again, and what are the common components that we think would be an opportunity for a school to customize, and what would be the standard structure and sessions. But I feel like if we try to answer that, to me, I feel like we have to focus on let's get this strong for Endeavor, and then figure out what is the version, what's our take on how to then replicate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I also, I don't know how other principals have led, but Tom is so unbelievably committed to this idea. He's such a values-first principal, and he's so transparent about it always. I feel like the year 1 work we've done this year is really foundational. I don't think that the academy or what we're going to try to do would necessarily work without the year we've had from a values first when thinking about replicating across other AF schools, unless other schools have been doing the same kind of values first work.
I totally agree. Yep.
Yeah, those are the schools that we've, I'm sorry, Joe, I cut in a little early. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to, I totally agree with you, Anna. That's exactly the culture we engage in Denver Public Schools as well, is that they cannot do an academy without the foundation of the culture in the school, because otherwise it just is a thing that's out there and a standalone, and it doesn't tie back. You need it to tie back to something. And so Denver Public Schools did the values vote, the democratic values vote for the shared core values first, and then the academy is the adjunct after that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so I think that's why the schools that we are thinking about are great candidates for this, because Crown Heights Middle has also been doing a lot of values first work and have been doing a lot of work around like family engagement in particular. So I think that we're all very much aligned with that thinking too. So thank you for bringing that up, Anna. So in light of Joe's comment that we all agree with, that we want some face-to-face time so that we can do content deep dive conversations, our agenda from 10:20 to 11:20 is that deep dive. So looking at the session outcomes for the DaVita sessions, and then actually looking at the materials and saying we want this and this is how we adapt it, or this part we don't need. So do we want to save that for when we're face-to-face with each other, or is there any part of this that we want to go ahead and dig into right now on the call?
My vote is we wait where we can actually have a better dialogue and there's not too much feedback on the phone. We can actually look at the documents together. So my vote would be we wait and do that face-to-face. I think my biggest next step is we've got to get a date confirmed, so we have like a target date and we can start with the communications and some of that work. I think putting this content together is not going to be that hard, and I'll free up my calendar here soon so that we can get a good day together. Because to string the content together, I don't know, Sally, what do you think? A solid day, a good like 10-hour day.
Yeah, I do. I think that it'll pull together quickly.
Yep.
Agreed. Okay, great. So for our conversation when we're together, so this was going to be our agenda if we were face-to-face. So what we'll be able to do next time is you'll be able to have a tour of AF and Denver Middle School, so that it's not just this place in your head. It ends up being a place that you visited. And I think the building and how we display like our network core values is really inspiring in that building. So we would have that tour, and then we would go into these other items here. So the deep dive 1B Academy content, as well as our logistics pieces, which I think will be easier done face-to-face and when we have a real date in mind that we're working toward.
Gersh, it sounds like we're going to need to blow up that portion of the agenda. It seems like we need more time delegated to like just the side-by-side going through session materials, getting clear on like what the content is and what we adapt or change. So maybe we just like shift time and like add, it sounds like we're going to need to add a few hours there. Does that seem right, Sally and Joe?
I think I missed your question. I think, yeah, I think we have to look side by side, and I think it's a dialogue of what works. What do we have to change? What do we tweak? How do you take the concept and make it achievement first, right, or endeavors? And so, yeah, I think that's just a brunt of like that's a whole day to me almost.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so we can, that's great. I think that would be excellent. So Gersh, are you going to take the lead in just coordinating availability? Maybe if Sally and Joe can give us dates that work for them, then we can coordinate it.
I was thinking to work with Crystal, but maybe, or is it Krista? But Sally
it's Krista.
Krista, so you can let me know if that works better for you or if I should work with you directly.
I think let Sally and I take a look at our calendars, and we will coordinate between the two of us. So Sally will connect after this call, and then we'll send you over some dates that work for us.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Joe and Sally, for making the time and for just being so generous with your expertise, and it's really inspiring, and I really can see a path to this impacting truly thousands and thousands of scholars, staff, and families. And I just think this is going to really be a catalyst for a great improvement in us doing the work we're setting out to do. So I just really thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep, our pleasure.
So, Joe, I will, as promised, I'm about to send over the agreement that Daisha had a chance to review. And also, everyone, the materials we were looking at are in a zip drive on the calendar invite. And then we'll work on dates to get an in-person, face-to-face meeting. And then, Anna, I'm going to send you an email, and we can figure out some times of when we can talk about some revising that we can do to the straw man, if that works for you.
That's great.
Okay, perfect.
I do think if there's any way to come on a Friday, I feel like it would be helpful potentially to see us in as a whole staff, like at the beginning of PD or in grade teams, or just kind of how we interact as staff might be helpful. I don't know.
To come on what day, Anna?
Well, on a Friday, we end early and kids leave at 1 o'clock, and then we spend the rest of the afternoon in grade teams and as a whole staff. So it would be an opportunity to kind of see us interact in as a whole group. I don't know if we could time it to do potentially one of our, like we do the values awards. We've done 2 of them this year. We could potentially time it, you know, where you could see the presentation of one of our values awards. So, I don't know. There might be some benefit to seeing us as a whole staff doing something connected to the values first work.
Oh, totally agree. So maybe what we should do is plan on a day and a half for sure. So maybe we plan on a Thursday. So Sally and I'll look for, we could start on a Thursday and hammer some stuff out, and then we could have a night where we can kind of reflect, come back the next day to do any fine tweaking and go from there. So we'll look for a Thursday, Friday if that works for all of you.
Great.
Yep. Cool. All right.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is really exciting for our school. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. All right, take care, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.